And for the lady, perhaps a salad?
Perhaps not. I'll have the steak smothered in onions, a rack of ribs, pasta with extra garlic, French fries with lots of vinegar, and a side of onion rings with lots and lots of sauerkraut.
What if everything the media told you about this case was only half the story? What if the real question is not how this family died, but why? And what if the answer has nothing to do with the version of events that made the headlines? Because right now, behind closed doors in Houston, 3 very different conversations are happening simultaneously, and none of them match the clean, simple narrative that the news pushed out in the first 48 hours. One group of people believes that Mitchell was caught having an affair, and that what happened on May 4th was a direct result of a marriage that had already broken apart privately, long before anyone outside that house knew about it. Another group believes a babysitter and the family member who made that welfare check called no more than they have ever said publicly. And a third group is asking a question that nobody in mainstream media has touched, whether Matthew Mitchell's previous life, his pharmaceutical empire, and the enemies that world can produce had anything to do with what happened inside that $1.2 million home on Kingston Street. 3 theories, 0 official answers, and a city full of people who are not satisfied with what they have been told. You are watching Crime Files, and if you have been following this case, you already know the surface story. But today we go deeper. Hit that like button, subscribe, and click that bell icon right now, because this is the kind of video that will make you question everything you thought you knew. Let's start with the affair. Now I want to be clear before we go any further. This is not confirmed. There are no named sources, no police reports that reference it, no official records. What there is a pattern, a trail of details that a significant portion of the true crime community has been assembling piece by piece since the very first week this story broke. And when you lay those pieces out side by side, the picture they form is hard to ignore. Start with the language people closest that I used to describe her publicly after her death. Her own publicist released a statement that said, and these are the exact words, that I was always on her own journey, always looking for the next adventure. Now on the surface, that sounds like a tribute to a free-spirited, ambitious woman, and it was probably intended that way. But read it again through a different lens. Always on her own journey, in a marriage, with 2 kids and a third on the way, running 2 restaurants alongside her husband, always on her own journey. People noticed that, and they started digging into her social media with fresh eyes. And what they found, or what they believe they found, was a shift. In the months leading up to May 4th, Dice's Instagram had a particular energy to it. More solo content, more mother and kids moments with no Matthew in the frame, more emphasis on her individual experiences and her personal brand rather than the couple they had always presented themselves as publicly. And some people in the true crime community started asking, was there someone else? Was the marriage already fracturing privately? Did Matthew know? Did he find out? And did whatever he discovered become the thing that finally pushed him over an edge he had already been standing on? Here is the part that adds another layer to this. Multiple verified sources and social media commentators have pointed to the fact that some people who knew this couple well believed that I was preparing to leave. Not just that the marriage was struggling, but that she had already made a decision. And if you know anything about the psychology of familicide, you know exactly why that detail matters. Research on cases like this consistently shows that the moment a woman decides to walk away is the single most dangerous moment in the entire relationship. That is when the risk of lethal violence spikes higher than at any other point. That is when men who have been quietly losing their grip on control reach for the most permanent solution they can find. Was I leaving? Was there someone else? Was Matthew aware of either of those things? We do not know, and I want to sit in that uncertainty for a moment, because Mitchell is not here to speak for herself. She cannot defend her name. She cannot correct the record. And the pattern of blaming female victims of violence for their own deaths by accusing them of infidelity is one of the oldest and ugliest moves in the book. So we hold this theory honestly. We present it because it is circulating loudly, and you deserve to hear it from someone who is being careful, not because we are treating it as fact. What we do know is that something was broken inside the house that the outside world never got a glimpse of, and whatever it was big enough to end 4 lives. Now, let's talk about the theory that people are the most heated about, the one that gets into the comments and does not leave, The question about the people who made that welfare check call. Here are the confirmed facts. Houston police and TMZ both reported that the welfare check on May 4th was initiated by two people, the family's babysitter and one of the victim's sisters, Dyson's sister, Lai Mai. Those are the two people who said they had not heard from the family since Sunday night and called for help on Monday evening. Those are the two people who set the entire discovery in motion. And people online immediately started asking questions. How close exactly was this babysitter to the family? What was her specific relationship to Matthew? To the children? What was the nature of her access to that home and that family? And why? If she was concerned enough about not hearing from them, did she wait until Monday evening to call? The last known contact was Sunday night. That is potentially 18 to 24 hours of silence before anyone picked up the phone. In a family where there were two young children, a pregnant mother, and a household that presumably had some kind of daily rhythm, what does it look like when that rhythm stops and nobody acts immediately? And then there is Lai Mai, Thai's sister, the same Lai Mai who just 2 months before had lost her own husband, Matt Chun, to a sudden brain aneurysm in February 2026. She had already been through something unsurvivable, and then May 4th happened. And when she posted about it on Facebook, when she made the first public announcement that her sister and the children were gone, she wrote something that a lot of people have spent a lot of time analyzing. She said that Thai and her beloved children had passed away. She shared photos. She asked for privacy. She mentioned funeral arrangements. And she said nothing, not one word about how they died. Not one word about Matthew. Not one word about what police were saying at the scene. Now I will tell you what I believe. I believe Lai Mai wrote exactly what a woman who has already buried one person she loves and is now being asked to bury 3 more would write. I believe she was protecting her family in the only way she knew how, by keeping the horror private for as long as possible, by giving her family the dignity of not having their worst day turned into a news cycle before they had even had a chance to cry together. That is my read, and I think most reasonable people share it. But the internet does not run on reasonable reads. It runs on gaps. And there's a gap here that has not been officially filled. The gap between Sunday night and Monday at 5:26 p.m. when police arrived. Nobody has officially explained what happened in those hours. Nobody has detailed what communication, if any, took place between the babysitter or Lai Mai and Matthew or Thai during that window. And until those questions are answered with specifics, the theories are going to keep living. There is no evidence pointing toward either of these women. Let me say that plainly. Houston police have been clear. The forensic evidence at that scene pointed to Matthew Mitchell. The medical examiner confirmed it. But in a case where the official motive is still, as of right now, completely unconfirmed, every unanswered question is an open door, and people are walking through them. Now, let's get to the theory that I personally think has been the most underreported, the one that the mainstream media has almost entirely skipped over. And that is the question of Matthew's previous life. His pharmaceutical career, the world he built before Traveler's Table ever existed, and what may have followed him out of it. Because this man was not just a chef. Before the restaurants, before the culinary degree, before Guy Fieri sat across from him at a table on national television, Matthew Mitchell was the president and CEO of the Texas Center for Drug Development Incorporated, a clinical research company. He ran that organization for over a decade, and then he walked away, completely, enrolled in culinary school, started working restaurant lines from the ground up, built Traveler's Table with I in 2019. The public story is that this was a reinvention, a passion pivot, a man who loved food and the world, and built something new with the woman he loved. And maybe that is exactly what it was. But the pharmaceutical and clinical research industry is not the kind of world where you just walk out the door and leave everything behind. It is a world of investors, of research funding, of regulatory filings, of clinical trial disputes, of intellectual property battles, of enormous amounts of money moving through very few hands. When you're the CEO of an organization like that, and you exit, the exit is rarely clean. There are people involved. There are financial interests at stake. There are professional relationships that can turn ugly when they feel abandoned or wronged. Did Matthew leave that world on good terms? Were there disputes that never became public? Were there people from that chapter of his life who carried grievances into the years that followed? Nobody has asked this on record. Nobody in mainstream coverage has gone back and looked at the history of the Texas Center for Drug Development to understand what that company's story actually was, who was involved, what happened to it after Matthew left, and whether any of that had a connection to the pressure that was building inside Matthew Mitchell in the months before May 4th. And then there is the restaurant business itself. Because Traveler's Table and Traveler's Cart were not small neighborhood spots. They were nationally recognized, award-winning, the kind of operations that attract attention from competitors, from investors, from vendors, from former employees who feel they deserve more credit or more compensation. The Houston food scene is tight. Reputations move fast. And when you are at the top of that world, the way the Mitchells were, you are also a target for every grievance that success generates. Dyer herself had said publicly just 3 months before her death that the financial pressures in the restaurant industry were significant. She was composed about it, optimistic, but the reality of running 2 full restaurant concepts and a clothing brand while raising a family and carrying a 3rd child, that is a level of financial and personal pressure that the outside world has no way of truly measuring. Did the business have enemies? Did someone from Matthew's pharmaceutical past carry something into the present? The investigation is still open. Houston police are still asking the public for tips. And that open call for information, weeks after the bodies were found, tells you that the official picture is still not complete. So here is where we land. 3 theories, each one pointing at a different piece of a puzzle that nobody has fully assembled yet. And what unites all 3 of them is the same uncomfortable truth, that the life Matthew and I Mitchell showed the world was not the whole story. It was a performance of a life, a beautiful one, an award-winning one, a national television one. But behind it, something was collapsing. And nobody around them, not their friends, not their colleagues, not their industry, not their community, saw it coming in time to stop it. That is the part of this that should stay with you, not just the theories, not just the speculation. The invisibility of it, the fact that a man can be a CEO and a chef and a husband and a father and a community figure, and still be falling apart in a way that the people who love him most cannot see. So ask yourself this. The people in your life who seem the most put together, the ones with the successful careers and the beautiful families, and the social media pages that look like everything is going exactly right. When did you last actually sit with one of them and ask how they are doing? Not in passing, not over a text. Really ask, really look at them, really listen to the answer. Because Mitchell had 50 restaurateurs in her building the week she died. She hosted a board meeting. She smiled and served food and made people feel at home. And nobody in that room had any idea what was waiting for her when she got back to Kingston Street. Maya never got to wear the dress. Max never got to grow up. The baby never got a name. And I never got the truth told properly. Until now. If this video opens something up for you, if you think more people need to be asking these questions, hit that like button, subscribe to Crime Files, and tap that bell icon so you never miss when we go this deep. We are not done with this case, and neither should you be.